two amazing guests. We'll start off with Assistant Dean of Students, Carol Sacchetti, as well as also Honorary Center and Director of Student Leadership and Orientation, as well as Associate Dean of Student Success, Allison Chase Padula. So you two have the floor, and welcome to Senate.
Thanks, Sam. I'm going to have you introduce me all the time. That was a nice introduction. Thank you. And hi to all the senators. It's nice to have some time with you tonight. And I thank you all for making some time for Carol and I to share a bit of what our strategic planning group has been working on and get some feedback. And hopefully this will be just one of several times that we'll get to speak with you both formally and informally in the future. And so I'll go ahead and get started. And Carol, please jump in. Carol's a member of our committee. I'm chairing the Preparing Our Learners group, which I don't know how much you all know about the strategic planning process. So just mention that there are 3 groups. We're focusing on more of the student-focused areas, student-impacted areas. There's a group working on designing our future, which is focused a bit more on faculty, staff, and structure of things on campus, and then a group that's focusing on broadening impact and looking at things that will put us in a good position for the future. But as I mentioned, our group has been working for a few weeks. It's a fast process that we're all engaged in. The university is really looking to make some headway with this, to have some ideas, to be able to vet a bit more, and then also to share with our board in May. Our group is made up of a wide range of folks from across campus. Liz Niemeyer from the advising office, Carol is a member of our committee, Justin Kishbaugh from the law school, Assistant Dean Jeffrey Merriweather from Shea, Pam Pereira from University College, Amy Tiberio, our Vice President of Enrollment Management, Brian Duff from CCPT, Kinneret Kandalhar from our Counseling Center, Zoila Quezada from our Intercultural Center, Lynn Mello from Marketing, and Professor Jay Oliver from the Gabelli School of Business. And so our group has been tasked with looking at how we prepare our learners, our students, and we were given 5 kind of key areas that the university wanted us to focus on. So there was kind of a structure created for us to delve into the issue. The first area being Hawks's Agile Problem Solvers, which I'll say more about that category. Second category was focusing on value propositions. So why would students and families choose Roger Williams? Third category being around embracing diverse experiences and perspectives. Fourth being around student access and success, with a particular focus on making sure that all of those things are equitable. And then the last group being on high impact and hands-on learning. So I mentioned when I said the first one, Hawks's Agile Problem Solvers. When we got that category, it was a bit confusing. We weren't really sure what they meant with that. And so we've spent some time really delving into, you know, who do we think our students are? What do our students want to be? And so we've changed that category around pretty significant to really focus on what we think that category should be. So we've turned it around to what we're calling a diverse set of learners. That's what Hawks mean to our group so far. And so we've really taken a peek at what does it mean to have a diverse set of learners. And for that, it's having the university seeking a diverse set of learners to make our community a robust learning environment that appreciates and celebrates many different perspectives, including BIPOC, LGBTQ, neurodivergent, differently abled, first generation, military, international, multi-generational, and multilingual populations. So from hearing that, I'm sure you can see that we were trying to make sure that we were getting across that Roger Williams students are many different kinds of people, right? They learn differently, they walk through the world differently, they're prepared differently, they're interested in different things. And so we've moved away from that agile problem solving category to a really broad one, because we think that really reflects who we are becoming and who we want to be in the future. So what I'd love to do tonight with Carol's help is to, I didn't want to present to you a big spreadsheet of all kinds of things which we've been wrestling with, but I hope to kind of share some themes of things that we're looking at. And then, you know, certainly for you guys to tell me like, wow, you've really covered a lot but you've missed something, or we like that idea, tell me more about it, or we hate an idea, it's a terrible idea, and tell us honestly what you think about some of these things. So when we've talked about that,
Allison, can I just do a quick disclaimer?
yeah.
So just so everyone knows, these are our thoughts. We haven't turned anything in, and Allison is our co-chair with Dr. Brian Hendricks. So we're putting our reports together so they can present on behalf of this. So I would just ask that, you know, after this meeting, you know, this is more like our thoughts. This is our brainstorming to kind of share with you. So I love my Hucks Herald friends, but this is nothing that we've formulated and have plans for. And our committee is just tasked to coming up with these plans, and then we turn it on to another committee to implement. So we're thinking big, bold ideas for another group to, and Allison and I joke that we're probably going to be in this big group to kind of put them forward. So these are just brainstorming ideas. Nothing is set in stone. And as you heard Allison talk about our committee, we're not just looking, we are talking to you, but you know, we're looking at every student at Roger, that including our graduate students, our law students, and the UC, and that's why our committee, you know, has representation of all. So some things you may hear and be like, well, that doesn't apply to undergraduate students. It may apply to another population here on campus that we're looking at.
Oh, Carol, I'm so glad you're with me. I'm glad you pointed those things out. And I guess the other thing that I should add on to that too is we really want to have feedback. And so our group has just started with getting feedback, and you're actually the first, well, I would say the second real formal group that we've presented to. I mentioned these themes last week on Friday, actually, to the graduate council, which is made up of all program directors, but you're kind of really getting the first view of this, which I think is appropriate since we're the group focused on students. We wanted to make sure that we could start rolling this out to get feedback to students. So thanks, Carol, for saying that, because there are things in here and that we've been discussing in our group that we haven't talked about with other groups, for instance, folks who that might be responsible for them yet, because we really are at that initial step of we're just brainstorming and coming up with ideas and trying to figure out which ideas resonate with people that are worth exploring more, and which ones, you know, should we drop because others are having more of an impact and really resonating with people more. So with that being said, one of the areas that we're talking about in the diverse set of learners is the idea of pathways. And so when you think about that big category of students that I mentioned, you know, folks come to Roger Williams from all different directions, and they move through Roger Williams in all different directions. So when we're talking about pathways, we're talking about things like, how do we get pathways secure for high school students to even know about Roger Williams and get familiar with Roger Williams and see themselves here. So, you know, those could be things like students taking dual enrollment courses, or taking what's called ACN classes, where they're taking classes at Roger Williams when they're still high school students. Looking at things like, how do we find ways for students to move through Roger Williams quicker if that's something they want to do, right? If they're a high achieving student, or maybe a student for financial reasons that they want to go through Roger Williams in 3 years because that makes more sense for them. How do we make that easier for them? How do we find ways to get students who may be starting in University College in Providence to be able to come to the Bristol campus if they want more of a traditional college experience? And then looking at one of the things that we're really excited about is talking about more options for 3+1 programs, or 3+3 options, so that students would be able to earn both their bachelor's degree and their master's degree here in a faster, more economical way for them. And then one thing our committee has spent quite a bit of time talking about is how transfer friendly are we, right? For our friends who are coming to us from other institutions, do we have articulation agreements? Do we have maybe easier plans for students who already have associate degrees to be able to come here and be able to do their education in a way that gets them out into the workforce in maybe a faster way? And how do we look at offering different kinds of things for people who maybe don't want a degree, but they want a certificate in something, or they want to earn some experience for their career in a different way? We've been talking about our relationship with the military and some of the programs that we've been offering, for instance, for the Navy for quite some time. How do we maybe look at expanding that? And how do we rebuild our international student population? Because I think that's one group of students that we used to have a lot bigger representation in, and over the years that has changed significantly for us. So in that area of pathways, those are some of the things that we're talking about. And I'd love to hear, do those things, make sense for you? Did we miss something? Maybe some of you are transfer students yourselves. Does that resonate with you? Are there any thoughts about that particular section? And Carol's going to take notes for me, for us, so that we have them to refer back to. Did that resonate with you at all? Do you think we're on the right pathway, so to speak, with the pathway section?
Michaela?
Yeah, so I really liked the ideas that you guys had. I definitely think it's a movement in the right direction. I can speak a little bit about like transfer credits coming in and how friendly it is. The answer is kind of difficult and not all that friendly. So a way to help like specifically high school students could be like what exactly like AP classes count for. Because I took a bunch thinking it was going to get me a bunch of credit, and then I got like below and like intro classes credit, so it was like difficult. So definitely like reforming that sort of situation. But I definitely like the pathway idea itself. And I would love to hear the rest of what you guys have to say. Thank you.
Thanks for mentioning that, Michaela, because you just made me think of something that we really haven't touched on in this particular group. I know we've touched on it in others. This group wasn't thinking about the AP specifically. And I've often had students question, like, why do some classes you only need to have a 3, others you need a 4 or a 5? Like, why isn't it uniform? So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm going to add that into our spreadsheet of things we need to look at. So thank you for that.
Michaela, I'm also adding dual enrollment because we see some high school students that come in with college credits, and I know some of you are nodding because I remember you from orientation asking those questions, and some high school students are taking college level courses as part of that, and then they come in with those credits. So I'm just going to amend your little statement to add both AP and dual enrollment.
Sure. I actually did dual enrollment too, and that was a little bit easier. I came from Bristol Community College, so that was pretty like flawless. Only one of my classes had an issue, but that was definitely an easier process. I think specifically because it was BCC.
Yeah, one of the things that we struggle with, particularly for transfer students, is how does that work with the core, right? Because obviously they're not taking the core curriculum at another institution. They may be taking something similar, but right now we have a process for, if they have X amount of credits, they get waived from maybe 1 or 2, but the core curriculum definitely has a big impact for transfer students, for sure.
Alicia?
Yeah, thank you guys for coming today. I just wanted to make sure that when you said or asked like what things stuck out the most, what do you guys think we should do? The one thing that stuck out to me was when you said, should we have more of the 3+1 or the 3+3, like those accelerated programs? Because I know I'm only a freshman, but the one thing that really attracted me to attending here with some of the master's programs that were just offered at a faster pace compared to a lot of other institutions. And I think that that's something that a lot of people who are really interested in, you know, pursuing their education beyond the undergraduate level, like they see that and they're like, oh my gosh, if I can get my degree in a shorter amount of time and then go on to, you know, bigger things and like that, like, especially in the way we live today, how things are just so fast paced. As soon as you said that, like, how do you think about this? Like, that was one of the main things that attracted me to Roger Williams, was just having accelerated programs available within completing your undergrad. So I just wanted to make sure I commended that. Like, that's a good way to me at least, persuade people to come attend Roger Williams.
That's helpful. Thanks for letting us know on that, because I think, you know, we have so many students who have good experiences here, and, you know, if they had a master's program that they could stay, plus you add in the value proposition of it would cost you a lot less money in the end, right, to be able to accelerate like that. I think it could be really interesting. And we've had really good success, I think, with a number of our master's programs. And we've been talking about how we're the only, you know, School of Law in Rhode Island, and how do we make it easy for undergraduate students here to take courses in the law school? Is that something we could do? Are there programs that could be offered for the law school and undergraduate here on the Bristol campus that maybe you could be doing, you know, a couple of different things? I think that might be worth taking a peek at too. So thanks, Allie, for that.
Fiona.
Yeah, Michaela kind of touched on it a little bit, but I was also gonna say I have a friend who's a transfer student, and like I know you touched on it too with the core curriculum. That just like is definitely harder. And I know most colleges have like gen ed classes, so maybe even looking at each individual transfer student's like previous classes to say like, oh, they've took a general science class, they don't need to take the core science class. And rather than like, cause like my friend took all her gen eds in her previous high school, and then came here to do this 3-in-1, and didn't know, and was upset because she had to take the cores all over again, which are just gen eds. So
Yeah,
just one thing to look at. And also I did the dual enrollment for 4 years in my high school, and it was a college that like wasn't like accepted or wasn't able to like be transferred to here. So that's also kind of frustrating. But
yeah.
I mean, and I guess it's hard too, because like I'm out of state, so I think that might be what it is too. So anybody in like New Hampshire, Connecticut, Massachusetts, that might not work for them.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting point. One of the things that we're looking at making a recommendation for is that every school, like so School of Engineering, School of Gabelli, Feinstein College of Arts and Sciences, has a faculty member who's designated as a transfer specialist, so that we're not asking everybody to be, you know, highly skilled in being able to figure out to somebody, you know, like this will count for this, or, you know, there might be a creative way for us to award credit in different ways. So identifying somebody that would be able to work with the transfer students that hopefully would be able to find, you know, some credits or a different way of accepting credits that would benefit them from. Great. Anything else on that section in particular? Because I've got a few more I want to run by you. Your comments are already really helpful.
Sorry, there are a few more speakers on the list, so if you don't,
okay,
if you don't
sorry.
mind.
I can't see that. So.
No worries. We'll start with Adam, then Ainsley, and then Tavik, and we'll cut off the speakers list from there, if that's good. Oh, Ainsley, my bad. Adam, go ahead.
So I love the idea of the transfer specialist, and I think that will definitely make us a more inclusive university, and I think it would really help the faculty advisors too in that process. Has there been any discussion about offering certification programs for the Microsoft Office suite for Access and Excel?
Yes.
Or any conversations about certain like industry recognized certifications?
Yes, great question, Adam. In fact, I was in a meeting the other day with the Dean of University College, Dean Bianco, and she mentioned that University College has that certificate for Microsoft. And so we started having a conversation, well, if we already are paying for it, like, why don't we open it to everybody? So that's going to be one of our recommendations, for that to be something that any student who's a Roger Williams student would be able to take advantage of. And then looking at, UC has already started with some of the certification programs, but I think where we haven't been as global as we'd like to is like, how do we get access for Bristol students to know that those certificate programs exist? Because it might be something you'd really be interested in doing, whether it's that certificate or the badge or something else that's going to make you different in the hiring process, right? Because you have these other credentials. And so we've been talking about offering credentials to Bristol students, making it easier for folks to access that, and then having the schools recommend some of the certificates or badges or credentials that they'd like to see students have access to, so that we could market it to students, so that you even know that that exists out there. So I'll definitely make a note that that's something that you had mentioned about, because I think that's worth, I don't think we do a really good job, and I don't think we do a good job of advertising what University College does really well, right? And so they've got some really great programs there that when I talk to students on the Bristol campus, they're like, UC has that? I didn't know I could take those classes, or how do I take a class at UC? So we have to break down some of those barriers between the physical parts of the campuses. Like, we're all one university. It shouldn't be that hard to take things in different places. And our committee's definitely talked about that.
That's great to hear. And has there been any conversation about, for students that come in with certifications such as like Microsoft Office Specialist for Access or Excel, being able to receive academic credit for those?
You know what, that came up during the vision process, like the last iteration of strategic planning, and it was not met with a lot of excitement, or the faculty had a lot of concerns about it, let me put it that way. So I haven't heard it come up since then, but I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't show up in one of the recommendations of these committees that they're working on, because it's one of the things that we hear about. I just don't know if it would get to the point where that would be cleared through the curriculum process. But I'm definitely making note that you're bringing it up, and I'll raise it with Dean Bianco.
And then Michaela has a quick question, so I'm going to hold you to that, Michaela.
Thank you for both for being here and giving us some insights on all of this. I definitely do think that in-state transfers are a lot more easier. I was fairly perfectly easily had my APs and the early enrollment through Rick kind of from high school into Roger, very smooth process. But I know I remember like as a commuter student, I was friends with like the transfer students also, and there were usually like a good amount of complaints about like their credits not being transferred and then having to fall behind. So definitely like working to make that a little bit more of a smoother transition for them. So I do think the financial advisor, the advisor in each university for transfer students would be an absolutely incredible idea, because like they would be specialized to it. I don't know if transfer credits for abroad kind of goes into this discussion, but I do know like students like have expressed frustration with like certain credits and courses being accepted by the university, and then after they come back from being abroad, there's been issues and then they fall behind or whatever the case might be. So maybe trying to work on like clarifying certain like transfer like a broad transfer, like that curriculum a little bit better, because I do know that is a little bit of an issue with some students when they come back.
Do you have the sense for, is that programs that are not the ones that we have relationships for, or is that even with things that
I'm not entirely sure. I've just like met students, whether they were on Senate before or whether just like in passing had conversations in the department. I just know they've had issues with like having those like credits come back into Roger, so they've fallen a little bit behind. So maybe it's special cases and that I happen to know about it and there were a special case, or so I just wanted to bring it up because I didn't know if that also qualifies into the transfer.
Well, that's another area that I'm glad you brought up, because we were talking about transfers more from the aspect of coming from another institution, but not thinking about the study abroad piece. So thank you for that. I'm going to make sure we
Thank you
about that.
Michaela, quick question.
Okay, so going off of what she just said very quickly, I just applied for study abroad and I came up with the same issue, and mine is affiliated. We had no idea what my classes were going to transfer into, so I thought I'd say that yes, that is with affiliated programs. But my actual question is there any plans for the language program in the language department? Because that was one of the ones that are falling behind a lot. I'm a French major, and I'm pretty sure I'm the only one right now. So that's a big concern of mine. Do you have anything on that?
Yeah, languages, we haven't talked about specific programs because that really wasn't in our charge, but I can certainly say from somebody who's been here a long time and who, you know, talks with students all the time about their plans. I think language and our international perspective, whether it's bringing in international students, preparing students for careers that are going to have an international lens, that language piece is super important. I know the president cares very much about that. It's one of the reasons why we went back to requiring all students to take a language placement during orientation. So language really hasn't come up, but I can certainly pass that along to the group that's working on more of the curricular things that you've mentioned, the decline in the language offerings. I know there's been some programs that have been put on hiatus too. So that's definitely worth bringing up to them.
And Michaela, thanks for sending me the school. Allison, I already have that as we kind of move forward. So we appreciate this. We have like 4 or 5 more sessions. So we really appreciate this feedback. We're gonna have gold stars when we meet at our committee meeting on Wednesday for all your points. So for follow-up, I may private chat some of you just to get a clarification. So if you see that and you can answer, that would be great, and I'll add it to the notes.
Sam, tell me, do we have time to go through a couple of more of these themes, or do you guys need to
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Cool. Because I've got lots of things to share.
Go ahead.
Awesome. So one of our other theme areas has been around community engaged work, and our committee is pushing rather strongly. We're trying to be bold about guaranteeing every student an immersive applied learning experience, so that everybody would get an academically rigorous engaged learning experience. And so that might look different for some students. We're going to be bold and ask that all majors should require an internship, because that would guarantee it and make it more financially, I think, accessible for students if it was part of their majors and it was part of what they could receive aid for. But we really want to push us to be thinking about those immersive experience being like what Roger Williams is known for. And again, it could be an internship, it could be study abroad, it could be doing an experiential learning, practicum with somebody. It could be doing faculty research, research with a faculty member on campus, but guaranteeing that for every single Roger Williams student. So when you're graduating, it's part of your experience. And I think where maybe we've had some trouble with that in the past is that hasn't been embedded into the curriculum. So finding ways that part of your experience, it's not something you have to pay extra for. It's not, everybody has an internship, I think is a good starting place. Maybe not everybody's going to agree with me on that, but the committee really wants to make that something that Roger Williams would be known for. Carol, did I miss anything else on
I was going to say on that, and I know before the questions start, is we recognize, and we've had some good discussion in our committee, that there are some schools who you get a paid internship, right? Like some professional schools. We know you're making, bank over the summer, that I would love to be an intern over the summer and make that. And we realize that some majors, you're lucky to get an internship, and sometimes it's not, you're not getting paid. You're paying to do it. And how do we look to be equitable? It's in a couple different places to make sure that we're being fair and consistent with internships. So students are being able to make some of that money and funds that we know that they may need, for the academic year. So I just want to make sure that our committee has talked greatly about that as well.
The other thing our committee has talked about is a different way of doing the Feinstein service learning requirement. So that being kind of a phased thing. I don't know if do they know that we're not doing community connections this fall, Carol?
I don't think so.
Breaking news. Please, again, don't share this widely, but community connections won't be happening in the fall because we're trying, the folks that are in charge of that area are trying to be really intentional about how we change that requirement, and that it would be kind of like a thing. So during orientation, students would have a session, would get an experience to learn about all the different ways that you could do engaged learning, thinking bigger and broader and more tied to what people might be interesting in. And then we would help you figure out for each student, like, what does that look like for you? So thanks, Sam, for saying that it's off the record, but that's the phrase I was looking for. There are talks about really changing that dramatically. And so what do you guys think of, I'd love to know about how students feel. Like, what do you think about that requiring an internship idea?
Well, the speakers list is building up. I can speak first. I do feel like I do need to give you a disclaimer to let you know that our meetings are being recorded. Just letting you know. We'll figure it out from here. But I do think it is a great, sorry, Adam, can you, thank you. I do think that the internship or the community engagement requirement is, sorry, is a good requirement for every student in every curriculum. The public health program, I know we do that in terms of our capstone class, and we have to have either an internship, faculty research, or the internship in DC. Those are the three requirements for that class for the completion of our major. Thank you to whoever did that. So yeah, I think I think the public health major has a really good model for that. So I don't know if you've looked at that yet. I'm sure other majors also have good models for that. So I think it's an experience that I know I'm going to benefit a lot from, and I know if it was required for all students, I think they would benefit a lot from as well. But yeah, I believe Jake is up next.
Yeah, so thank you both for coming in. Really appreciate it. I'm a really strong fan of the idea of having every student have some form of internship before they graduate, because I mean that experience it adds a whole nother level to your learning experience, and really like it helps you not only to get other future internships, but also applications to grad schools and jobs in the future. So I really think that that's going to be something that benefits the entire student body, especially if we're able to do it in a way that's fair to all, majors, and really allows everybody to get an internship that they desire and that will help them.
So my speakers list completely, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just thanking Jacob for that.
So my list completely cut off. So Ainsley, you're up next.
Sam, and thank you both for being here. As a person who's currently going through the struggle of internship woes right now, I am in favor of it because I do think real world experience is key, especially during college, in order for future success. I just worry that, because I know right now for me, I chose an internship that would be paid over the summer, but then the con of that would be I have to pay for the summer course. I'm a legal studies major and I'd have to take the practicum course. So this one won't even count for credit because I can't afford to give up that little income that I'm making to get credit. So I'm going to have to do an internship later on. But I made that choice consciously, but there's like struggles that go along with it. And I just worry that it'll be very hard for specific majors to get that equitable treatment because most internships are unpaid and it's very hard to find the paid ones. I like the idea of looking at different options for that experiential learning that you were mentioning. And I would really like to see that move forward as another option in addition to the internship. I also was wondering, because I'm currently in a class that's working with the CPC to do research for the Slave Medallion Project in Rhode Island. Would there be an emphasis on encouraging more classes to work with that?
Absolutely. And so that's that piece about the engaged learning, is that you want to use engaged or experiential learning. That would all be part of that. So we're kind of thinking it would be like a menu for people to pick from, what makes most sense for them personally with their major. Is it something like a CPC, or is it study abroad, or whatever it might be? And we are, part of the reason we started toying with that idea for the internships was to try to, as Carol was saying earlier, recognizing that some majors have the luxury of getting these really great paid internships, and then lots of other folks are struggling to figure out, like, how do I financially make this work? And we wanted to make it part of the curriculum so that it would be, again, something that's funded. I think there's a lot of opportunity to work with alumni, to work with families who have connections for these types of things, to build up more opportunities for students. And so I think that's something that we could probably build on, to have, you know, a more robust listing of internships and other experience that students could pick from that would make the most sense for them. So that's helpful to hear that reiterated, that financial piece is a big concern, because we definitely recognize it is.
Thank
you. I also think it's a fantastic idea to have internships be like kind of a requirement for all students. I have my dual degree, like double, and neither of them require it, but I do have an internship, but I haven't been getting it for credit because of the financial aspect of it. And so I've been doing for international relations and philosophy. I've been doing all that coursework plus everything else, plus my internship for the past 2 years without getting credit, because I acknowledge that internships are important for my future successes and like grad school acceptances and all that stuff. So it definitely has helped, but I haven't been getting any credit for it because like I consciously chose not to because of the financial reasons. But if it's a requirement for every student, then that makes sense, and it would kind of like work in its way of like making it financially even and everybody's getting the same chance. And I think that would be a great marketing point for Roger Williams too, honestly, like saying it's an internship requirement, because while applying to grad schools and looking at jobs, just having an internship written on my resume like has really like helped me a lot. And like I did get feedback about my internship experiences, and like it's always a discussion point. So like I think that would really help Roger Williams and the students that attend it for like their future successes. So I think that's a great idea.
It's one of those access issues, right? Like it shouldn't be luxury, it should be something that everybody can do.
Right, and we're such a small local school that like we have access to so many things. We have access to the marina, we have access to the Navy base, we have access to Providence for like business students. We have access to like so many little like things that are also local to Rhode Island, don't even have to go to Massachusetts. But I'm sure, of course, it would have to like go across. So I think it's definitely something that could be easily utilized. So
great.
Adam.
I think that having a experiential learning be a requirement is very beneficial, even if it's not necessarily an internship, but having that experience outside of the classroom, whether it be research that can count or other opportunities to work with departments on campus. My only concern would just kind of be the implementation and rollout of it, with really having to grow the CCPD and add more staff to help students work on it. So I think that would be something that having an internship now, it's just going to be important to expand those opportunities if it is a requirement, so that students are not having that additional stress as they're going through their academic plans.
Well noted. Yep.
And Adam, you bring up a great point. And as much as Allison and I would love to say, here are all the things implementation teams start, we just need to realize with strategic planning, and we've learned this, that it's not something that we're talking about now for the future. So we might say all of this, and it may take 1, 3, 5 years to get some of these things off the ground, because we have to build the infrastructure. We just can't say tomorrow we're going to do X if there's no infrastructure kind of set up, either with staffing or plan, or how do we tag this, and who's going to go reach out to all these alums, because then we're setting ourselves up for failure, and we're not doing, as you all love, your backup documentation and your due diligence in really making this work. So it's the same thing for us. We can't just say, this is what's going to happen now. Allison did mention we've been doing this now for 3 weeks, and we meet for a lot more time, Allison more than me, to try to get this happening so we can start that planning, realizing that some of you who maybe are first-year students may see bits and pieces of this your freshman, your junior and senior year, but we need to put that time in to make sure all these plans, come to fruition.
Allie.
To be completely honest, I'm a little bit conflicted because I know a lot of students who are a little bit frustrated that they have to pay for accredited internships that are unpaid. So I don't know how that response will be from students. I know that it's going to be a different wave of students by the time this is implemented, but I think that that's something to consider. The financial aspect is definitely something important. I think that it's definitely worthwhile looking into different aspects of experiential learning because like it has been said by different senators and different humans here, it's extremely important. And it's also very different in different levels of difficulty to find different internships for different majors. For example, I'm a public relations major. No company really wants to do their social media, so it's way easier for me to find an internship than a lot of other majors.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to recognize those things when we're moving forward.
Absolutely.
Nikki.
So I just wanted to say I agree with everybody else that I think an internship or experience is really important. I would just say, because my major requires me to have an internship, and this is my own experience, but I was kind of tossed to the side by the CCPD, or however the acronym is pronounced, because they just didn't have enough resources for me, and it made it really hard to find an internship. So I think it's going to be important that you build up those resources and help out all majors, because I understand more people from the business side will come in for business majors, which is really important. But when I'm in the legal studies field, I never saw any lawyers come in or anything like that. And it made me it was really hard for me to network if I didn't have someone from my field come in. So I think it's important to make sure you bulk up all those smaller fields as well.
Yeah, there needs to be equity across the board, and legal studies, we've got the law school, so are there ways to across curriculums, across schools to build up some of those opportunities? Might be kind of interesting.
I think, as Allison said, as we look at maybe alumni, there's some alums that donate funds, but are some donating their time or finding an internship in their place of business that can also help students and ultimately help the institution.
Team Padula, if we want to move on to another section.
Yeah, because there's two really big ones that I want to be able to mention to you, and I'm cognizant that I'm taking up so much of your time. But our committee has been focusing around the diversity, equity, and inclusion area, and thinking about how we do that in a way that's really meaningful and across campus. So some of the things we're talking about in that is bringing in intercultural fluency as the way that we want to describe what students get out of their education. So when you graduate from Roger Williams, we want you to have a certain level of intercultural fluency, and really focusing on how do we make it part of the curriculum? How do we make it part of how people are evaluated on campus? How do we make this a part of everything we're doing? So we kind of really grappled with, should it be its own section or should it be a part of everything? And so we ended up in the end that we are leaving it as its own section, but we are building in equity issues to every single one of the sections that we're talking about, because it's not enough to just have a section on that, right? It has to be part of the fabric of everything that we're doing. So we are kind of still grappling with that section. The other section that we're really having a lot of conversations, Carol's been so helpful in this section, is around what I would kind of call sense of belonging. And so in that area, we're having conversations around what are the things that have the most impact on students, right? It's our sense of community. It's the mentoring you get on campus. It's the advising you get on campus. It's feeling like you have a place here. And so our group's been talking about that kind of in a few different sections. It's, you know, do we have the spaces for that? Student union keeps coming up, for instance. Do we have, mentoring is a really important thing for me. It's something I'm really passionate about. I feel rather strongly that every student here should have a mentor. They should have a team around them, right? Like it's people you're connected to in different strategic campus offices that can help support you through your time here. You know, what does our advising system look like? Is one thing that we've been really having a lot of conversations around. How do we make sure that students have opportunities to have some flexibility with the things that they want to do here? So one of the things we've been talking about is, do we explore more of what does a design your major look like, right? So if we don't have something that specifically fits your needs, could you kind of put together you know, a program here with another program here and kind of create your own major, you know, as a way to give students some more flexibility, some ownership around a major. So we've been having some conversations about that. Carol, what am I missing from that section?
I think we also talked a lot when Allison talked a little bit about spaces, like what is a wellness center? You know, how are we making things more centrally located for students in regards to, you know, realizing that mental health is so important, physical health? Are we putting all the like areas together? I'm sure some of you are laughing. Of course, if I was involved, the student union would be coming up as well. How are we looking at, you know, maybe we do, you know, get students ready during the first year. How are we looking at maybe a sophomore experience? Where are we adding some key points? And then what are we doing with junior and seniors, both in and outside of the classroom? And when Allison is talking a little bit about advising, she's talking about that academic advising. You know, how are we really making sure that everyone kind of understands the plan and the resources that are here? And I just want to highlight when Allison says like this mentoring is, how are we also training some of those mentors? So if you come and see Allison or I, and we're probably not the best examples because we've been here forever, but how do we make sure that those mentors know all the resources that are out there? So it's not sending you to 5 or 6 different offices to get an answer when someone could say, oh, it's that here's this office, here's who you contact. And how do we really kind of share some of those ideas and maybe break down silos? So,
and how do we take advantage and build up some of the things that we already have? You know, Carol mentioned the class issue. Carol knows this. I talk about a sophomore program all the time because, you know, it's great when you're a first year student, everybody spends a lot of time and attention with you, everything you need. You have lots of support. And then you get to your sophomore year, it's like, we hope you know, remember everything from the first year. So really making sure that we carry through those levels of support. And I think, you know, some schools work by class. You know, there are things, as Carol was saying, that are specific to the needs of juniors. How do we like build that out? And I think we've got some opportunities to be a lot stronger at that. And I think, you know, ICC is a perfect example of working with a student group like that on, you know, these are the things that juniors really want to see happen. Are we making sure that we're responding to needs of students as it's going? Carol mentioned the wellness area has been a significant topic for us. I'm particularly concerned about, you know, kind of post-COVID, what things look like. It's not like things are going to go, you know, back to normal in it, you know, in a couple of months or even in, you know, a year. Realizing that students' experiences have been really different while they've been in high school, or how are we preparing for these incoming first year students next year? How are we making sure that students who've been here with us, been remote, or who've been, you know, doing this hybrid thing, like are able to switch back into more of a traditional environment? We've got a plan around that. And so I know there's, you know, I have a meeting, I think it is Wednesday, to talk with some faculty leaders around like, how do we prepare faculty for students who are going to be here? All of these things that have been so challenging for students in the last few years and so challenging for us too, right? So we're having some conversations around on those things I think are super important. So, you know, your feedback on things that are important to students, like on that sense of belonging and making sure that you have support. Are there things that you'd like to see us, you know, call out specifically in the report and in the recommendations? Are there things that have been, you know, on your mind as Senate in that area?
And I would just add to that too, not only Senate, but other orgs as well. But what does it mean to be a Rogers student? Where is that school pride? Where is that sense of being, like you all, I'm preaching to the choir and you know this, you know, that sense of being involved and knowing things in that, in regards to, you know, programming and events and support, but what does it mean to really be that Rogers student and take pride in your institution and know some of the history and, you know, how would we connect ourselves to the mission and values that we're talking about? So people do, you know, Allison joked earlier on about Hawks's agile problem solvers, but, you know, we're talking about is how are you excited and speak about Roger in those high points? And we're figuring with a sense of belonging, everyone has those connections in addition to all of our other points that we're bringing up. Again, we're very bold with our thinking that make people feel like this is the place for them. And I think a lot of you know that because you've always said, you know, oh, I know when I came to Roger, I felt hope. Well, what does that mean for everybody?
Easily.
Well, first off, to answer Carol's question, when I like stepped foot on Roger, I had that feeling where like this was where I should be, which is why I came here. I don't know, I take really pride in the campus because I feel like I have a, not to like sound, I don't know, like, anyways, I feel like I have a big part on campus, being a part of a student group. I feel pride with being a part of Senate, and I feel like, and I just feel like that's why why I feel so proud of campus, because I feel like I have a role in it, which I hope most students do when they're on an e-board of a club or a club member or a part of any other org or a sports team, that they feel like they have a place here, like I found with Senate. But I have a question for you all as well. When you were mentioning the mentor program, my mind immediately went to advisors. There have been issues with advisors in the past that I've heard about, how they don't really get training on Rogers Central or on everything. My main advisor is great. He's not the best, but he tries. He tries. He doesn't understand even though he's in the justice studies department, I feel like he doesn't understand my major as well as like a criminal justice major. And it's hard, especially for me as a double major. I don't get an advisor for my second major. I had to find a professor who I didn't even know. I went up to a random professor who I heard great things about, and I said, hey, can you be my unofficial history advisor? Thankfully, they said yes, and they've been a great advisor for me. They really helped me with study abroad and all that. But I was wondering, would there be more of an emphasis on advisors actually meeting with their advisees? Because I know some advisors don't even meet. My advisor doesn't. He just said, email me when you are set, and I'll lift the hold for you. I'll meet with you if you really want to, but.
And so I don't want to know who people are or all that, but I will say from my own personal experience, it's really important, I think, to have an advising system that's not transactional. So it's not just about lifting the hold, right? There's this conversation. It's supposed to be a dialogue. It's supposed to be a place for students to bounce ideas off of. And I think we need to do training in that area to get everybody to understand that that's what it should look like. I think you just brought up an excellent thing that I hadn't thought about, which is you automatically don't have a second advisor for that major. Like, why didn't I think about that before? That there should be a process for that. You should have a primary advisor and a secondary advisor. I think that might be something that would be relatively easy to do. we've got an advising center and we've got faculty advisors. So how do we get the two working together to really support one another? I think you're absolutely right. We need more training. We train new advisors who are coming in to a certain degree, but we have folks who've been here a really long time who maybe have never taken advantage of a training workshop. So how do we get people to really hone those skills? I like to think that all of our faculty here chose to be at a small school because they want to have the interaction with students, and how do we help them, be really great advisors. And so I think that's something we need to spend some time on for sure. I had a student panic and call me today saying she couldn't, the hold hadn't been lifted and she thought she was all set. And then she got in and she was like, what do I do? And I was like, okay, did you meet with your advisor? Yes, I'll take down your hold. But like, I don't even know how she got to me. Like, how did she know to call me and say, hey, I need help? So how do we work on those things so that students aren't getting stressed about advisement and registration? It should really be about conversations and making sure that you have some guidance and direction. And some students need more than others do in that way, and making sure that, you know where to go for those things, I think are super important. So thanks for mentoring that. And especially thank you for the double major thing, because I already wrote that down.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Kayla.
Hi, thank you so much. I kind of want to go off of Ainsley's point because I kind of have the exact opposite situation going on. My advisor is like, he goes above and beyond, and he's the reason that I found the things that I did that makes Roger feel like home. And he's great, love him. But I do have a second major that's in a completely different school. And I've had to reach out to numerous people trying to get any advisement over there, especially because I told you I think I'm almost positive the only French major, so it makes life a little difficult. And getting emails back from people, because all I ever get is, oh, go to the dean. I don't get an email back from the dean. Where do I go from there? So especially with the crossover of schools with a second major, because it's one thing if you're in the same school, it's another because I'm CAS for international relations and then I'm Shay for French. So it's just a mess. And then minors are in M&S and Gabelli, and
you're all over the place.
But it's been a nightmare because it is all over the place, and I feel like I need to talk to 4 separate people and none of them will talk to each other. So
it
just
shouldn't be that hard.
No, it's very difficult. So getting that a little easier to get people to facilitate being able to talk to each other and being on the same page, seeing the same things. It should be a big goal because it's been very difficult.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thanks for that.
Hey, Mike.
Go to Talik next.
Hi again. To answer the question, and then I'll comment on that side of it. To answer the question, what made Roger home for me was starting freshman year, I was a commuter student. So it was about a 45 minute drive. And having that little commuter group honestly allowed me to create the friendships that I made, and then getting directly involved in student senate was the reason I felt even more at home being a commuter student, because even though I had to commute at late hours back home, I at least knew I had a foundational group of friends, of this forced family that we ended up all being actual family. But it was this community, this sense of community. And then as time went by, another senator said, we ended up knowing information that other students didn't. So then here I am providing information to students and faculty members. And then I'm just kind of it just kind of rolled on that way. And that's why I felt a sense of home. It really honestly was being involved in student senate, and then how they treated commuters when we first came in. And then regarding the whole advisement thing, I do definitely think the second major is definitely should be worked on. My advisor seriously goes above and beyond for me as well, so I've had an incredible experience with that. Makes me feel home, is the reason I am going wherever I am going kind of situation, and I wouldn't have the internships I've had or anything without my primary advisor. In terms of like my second major, I did switch that up several times, but finding a advisor for that was all on me versus anybody else, and that was the even more difficult part. But my primary advisor did most of the communicating to help me kind of get started on anything I needed. So I fortunately did get lucky with an advisor who knew a little bit about everything. So I was lucky in that sense. So definitely a little bit more connection on all that. Wow, I just had a whole nother point I totally am blanking on. But yeah, Rogers an awesome place. I'm a senior now. It's definitely sad to leave, but I'm beyond thankful for all the opportunities that like I've been able to get from this small school. Oh, I remembered. I knew if I kept talking, I'd remember. I'm sorry. I think the beauty of some advisors not reaching out, like not having that tight-knit relationship with their students, is the fact that they want to hold you accountable to it. We are adults at the end of the day. So like I've noticed like a handful of advisors always like do that first couple of like initial things of like, hey, like I'm your advisor. Hey, like I'm your professor. Like let's get talking. Let's do this. Like they do the reach outs. And if you as a student are not reciprocating some sort of feedback back, they will kind of like, okay, well, you're an adult. You're making that decision for yourself. If you don't want that sense of community and connection with me, then that's all on you. And then by the time they're senior, they're like, well, I haven't heard from my advisor. What's going on? That's like, well, you ruined that relationship yourself. They're there for you for the hold at that point. And, you know, so I feel like it's that weird like level also of being held accountable for your own actions when it comes to like sometimes not hearing back or having that sense of community with the advisors, because my experiences have all been great. So
Thanks.
Ashley?
Yeah, kind of speaking on what the previous senators were saying about like the double major, like I recently just declared my two majors, and like one of them I've taken classes in, so I was able to find an advisor for me easily. But then the other major I haven't taken any courses in yet, so like I still don't have an advisor because I don't know anyone, and I have to like reach out, and like it would have been a lot easier for me like knowing who could have been like potential different advisors, especially since some like professors can't be advisors if they're like adjunct faculty and stuff too. And then another thing is I came in as an undeclared student, and the advisor I was giving like what they like taught did not align at all in like what I was interested in. So then when I had the meeting with them like last semester to like go over what classes I was picking, they were trying to like push me to pick courses like in the major that they like taught, but that wasn't at all like what I like was looking to like major in or anything. So like I feel like picking like when you're deciding who is going to be an advisor for which like undeclared students, maybe like taking some feedback from the undeclared students on what some of their interests might be before signing an advisor would be a good idea as well.
That's a great idea.
Ali?
Thanks for coming and talking about this topic specifically. I know that obviously people just picked classes and everything. I personally have a great relationship with my advisor, similar to some other senators here. But I have heard some stories from some of my friends who they emailed their advisor a couple of times and their advisor didn't answer them, so they couldn't even register for classes. And obviously that's not ideal because classes fill up and things of that nature. So I think some sort of advisor training would go a long way so that people there's some sort of expectation for advisors, because when hearing about all of the different treatments that people have gotten with different advisors, I think it's important that students get some sort of equal treatment across schools.
Sheila?
I just wanted to add on to a few senators' points. They mentioned having a hard time having a double major and getting advising on their double majors. I personally have a double minor, so I just want to add that's another factor that students might face with double minors or minors in general, getting advising on that. Because I feel like personally I've had to do a lot of looking on the website and figuring it out, and also just trying to get in contact with professors, which I've had a pretty easy time doing so because I've had some good relationships with the professors, but it might be harder for other students.
Tavik, you can go ahead and direct.
I guess, yeah, like right off of that, I'm a double major, double minor, but I've in this last like semesterish, I've had to drop. I don't even know what's kind of happened to my minors given that lack of communication because one was a language and the language is, so I think it depends on like the department's strength also because like going off of that, the having minors that also aren't in the same schools as your majors really does make some sort of like spider web issue like mess. So
Yeah. Did we make it through the whole list of everybody, Sam?
Yes, you did. That completes the speakers list.
Awesome. Well, I know I'm going to speak on behalf of Carol and myself and the whole rest of the committee and my co-chair, Dr. Hendrickson. This was super helpful. And we could have probably spent like 3 hours talking about all these things because you guys had feedback and there's so many pieces of it that, you know, we didn't even touch on with you. So I'm going to chat with Carol in our next group about maybe how to get some get some things back to you guys for some other feedback as we go along in the process. And I know if you're anything like me, when somebody comes in and starts, you know, throwing all these ideas out here, it might be 2 hours from now, you're like, oh, I should have asked about that, or I want to give feedback, or maybe you have something you feel super passionate about and you didn't want to talk about it with the whole group. Please don't hesitate to send me an email or call me. It's hapadula@rw.edu. Open to, you know, however you want to communicate about some of these things, but it was really important for us to at least kind of get an initial feedback from you guys on things. So I appreciate you, you know, keeping the conversation that we had together just with Senate and with Carol and I tonight as we move forward with this, and we'll make sure that we follow back up with you on how things are moving forward. I know other groups are going to probably be looking for feedback in different areas too. So I just really appreciate you guys giving Carol and I so much time tonight to talk about this and get feedback from you. It's been really, really helpful. So thank you very much.
And then Sam, I can just add a point to that. I know that all the other org chairs are here, and I won't speak for Allison, but if some of this interests you or some different topic areas that Allison said, and you're like, hey, Carol, you're at our meeting anyway, can we talk about this week? Please just let me know, and I will do the same thing and take notes and get them to our committee if there's something that strikes a chord with you because of your mission, or you're just interested, or you want to share about advising or the sense of belonging. No one was excited about the student union, but that's okay. I know advising.
I am. I've worked here for 21 years. By God, by the time I retire, there will be a student.
But I have no problem, you know, going to another org meeting or an e-board meeting, or if some of you have, like Allison said, the personal things. I know most of you know, I mean, I'm still here in my office, so most of you know where I live, that you can pop in and ask questions, and I will get everything to Allison. We meet every Wednesday and Friday morning, and we've started meeting Mondays too. So our committee is putting a lot of time into it in regards to students and really, you know, talking about ideas, and anything we bring up in our small subcommittee even goes back to our larger committee. So I appreciate your time as always. I'm going to stay on in LARC, so in case there's other questions, and I love listening to our reports as well. So
yeah, if anybody wants to chat, I'm in the clock tower. Obviously, I'm still here tonight too, but I'm going to go home.
We have one more question actually from Adam. So Adam, go ahead.
So as we wrap up, can you just share kind of the overall timeline, just so that we have a clearer picture?
Yeah, so the timeline for our group in like the current form that it's in, right, in this working group, I think takes us into May. And so I'm looking forward to, I think it's Thursday, we found out today, Thursday, we're going to be doing kind of a session with cabinet and with the deans. And then we're going to be refining some more of our work. And I think the eventual work that we'll be putting forward will be to the Board of Trustees. Their meeting in May. And the next part of strategic planning we'll be taking kind of what these committees have started working on in these, like as Carol referred to them earlier, these big ideas, and then passing it to the next level for the administration to make some decisions about what they think we should move forward on. And then there'll be some groups that'll start their work on building infrastructure, implementation, what does it look like? How do you measure these things and doing that next level of it? So really, this first phase is really just about ideas and putting things out there for people to respond to, and then they'll start refining things a bit more. But it's a very aggressive, I guess is the word I would use, aggressive timeline, as Carol said. We started on this a few weeks ago, and when we first got it, I thought, oh my gosh, how are we going to get through? You know, there's so many things to talk about. We've made a lot of headway, and now that we're in this phase of starting to get feedback from different constituencies, I'm hoping we'll be able to refine things a bit more, but it's moving pretty quickly, which I have to say, I've been involved in every strategic plan when they put up the whole list of them. The only one I didn't do was the ones in the 90s because I wasn't here yet. This feels very energetic. It feels really inspirational. People are motivated. Like Carol said, we're meeting like 2-3 times a week, and that's like 8 or 9 hours of people's week. That's a lot to be asking people who are working nights and weekends on this. So it feels really exciting. And so I'm hoping that that will carry forward with some really good plans for the university to move forward. So.
And with that, thank you very much, Deans Padula and Sacchetti. We really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, and I'm sure the Student Senate really valued this time we had with the both of you.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll move on with our org reports. We'll start with IRHA.
Right. Happy Monday, everybody. This past weekend,
For new business.
Motion for new business.
All those in favor of opening new business? All those opposed? Abstentions? New business is now open. Any pieces of legislation for new business? Jake.
Thank you. Introducing SS47 XXX, a bill allocating funds from the reserve account to renovate the floors and walls of Hawks Lounge.
Is that for regular consideration?
For regular consideration, yes. And then I have like 2 more. Do I have to put lists in again, or can I just rip them?
I believe he said it's for regular consideration. Sorry, we're just having tech issues, but I'm going to assume that's what you said, right?
I did
Cool.
say regular.
Looking forward to hearing that. Tanovic?
Thank you. Introducing SS47XXX, a bill amending Article 6, Section 2 of the Student Senate bylaws.
Is that for regular consideration?
Yes, that's for regular consideration.
Perfect. Thank you. Oh, we've got a list going here. Brianna?
Introducing SS47XXX, a bill amending Article 2, Section 15 of the Student Senate bylaws.
Is that for regular consideration?
Yes.
Looking forward to hearing that. Adam?
Introducing SS47XXX, a bill amending Article 2, Section 15, subsection 4 of the Student Senate bylaws for regular consideration.
Looking forward to hearing that one. Jake?
Introducing SS47XXX, a bill allocating funds from the reserve account for the purchase of new furniture for Hawks Lounge for regular consideration.
Thank you. Looking forward to hearing that. Brianna?
Withdrawn. You just kind of like skipped over me on the list at first, I think, and then I thought that you missed it, so I put it back in.
Okay, cool. Adam?
Introducing SS47XXX, a bill amending Article 2, Section 16 of the Student Senate bylaws for regular consideration.
Looking forward to hearing that. Jake?
Introducing SS47XXX, a bill allocating funds from the reserve account for the purchase of game equipment for the Hawks Lounge.
Is that for regular consideration?
For regular consideration, yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Adam?
Introducing SS47XXX, a bill amending Appendix A, Section 1, Article 3 of the Student Senate bylaws for regular consideration.
Looking forward to hearing that one. Jake?
Introducing SS47XXX, a bill ratifying all Class E, D, C, B, and A organization, club sport, and club budgets for the 2021-2022 academic year for regular consideration.
Thank you for that one, Adam.
Introducing SS47XXX, a resolution calling for elected officials to support doubling the maximum Pell Grant award amount for students for regular consideration.
Looking forward to hearing that. Are there any other pieces of legislation for new business tonight?
Second.
All those in favor of closing new business? All those opposed? Abstentions? New business is now closed. We're on to announcements.